Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today, focusing in on how to really heal and overcome negative self-programming that was installed at the hands of a narcissist. The narcissist can be a parent, the narcissist can be a spouse, the narcissist can be a sibling. It can also be a business associate or coworker, depending on really the depth and length of time that you have been involved with them. Most seriously and most profound, we see the negative self-programming coming from the original parents of that child or that individual. So if one was raised by narcissistic or borderline parents, or even psychopathic for that matter, one is going to have a degree of what we call negative self-programming or negative validation that is known in the psychology community. And negative self-programming basically means that messages were instilled in you at the hands of your caregiver. So realize that your caregiver, as John Bradshaw says, that children need mirroring and echoing. So mirroring means a looking back at them, a reflection of them, a kind of giving back of their emotions of joy, happiness, bliss, excitement, discovery, learning. And really it's that mirroring back. In other words, when a parent is able to look back and validate them with that same facial musculature, with the same look and experience in their eyes and in their body language and in their voice, that's when the child really learns to validate and accept and experience their own emotions. And they are then taught really from that, in that echoing, they're taught how to identify their feelings and understand the role of their feelings, and then how they are able to positively use their feelings to promote and navigate their world, and really helps them to encourage discovery, learning, and positive self-esteem. So positive self-esteem basically just means how you feel about yourself. And really it's the original family, the caregivers, that instill that self-esteem or take away from that self-esteem. So not necessarily that it's instilled, but it's either enhanced or it is really sort of corrupted or taken away at the hands, really, of those original caregivers. And John Bradshaw says that mirroring means that someone is there for them and reflects who they really are at any given moment of time. In the first 3 years of our life, each of us needed to be admired and taken seriously. We needed to be accepted for the very one that we are. And having these mirroring needs met results in what Alice Miller calls our basic narcissist supplies. So really that's, the original understanding and experience of ourselves. So if parents were narcissistic, meaning too self-absorbed, too caught up in their own world, too self-centered, and didn't have all their kind of emotions intact, and were abusive emotionally, either through criticism, harsh judgment, constant berating, constant neglect, which means not providing these basic narcissistic needs. If these are not provided, the child begins to experience a sense of abandonment. And so it can be at the hands of either a verbalization to that child, you'll never make it without me. I heard one client say at the hands of her parent, and these are all lies that were basically, told to that child. You're so horrible, you're spoiled, you can never make it without me. What is wrong with you? And just like basically being scolded for being a child. I remember at the hand of my parents, kids have natural, lines in their skin, just like you see, and my mother, I'll never forget, was just trying to scrub away like the lines of my neck at 3 years old and saying like, like you have dirt in your skin, and there was nothing wrong with my skin, but in her perception, she was constantly finding flaws, constantly berating me. I mean, for having natural, just being myself, was constantly berated, and it was really, nothing based in reality. So, if you have lines in your skin, natural creases and lines, like with anybody, it's, that's just normal. It's just, people have natural, or like in your wrists, like you have, and, to say that like, you have dirt in your skin and like, just trying to scrub it and get it out. You can't get out creases in your skin. I mean, that's just how it is. So it's just like, if you've had negative mirroring at the hands of a perfectionist, narcissist, who, you have to be more than human, superhuman. I mean, the standards are way, way up, so that can be a, it can be at both extremes, where the mirroring was too perfectionistic, too harsh judgment, too much, excessive criticism. That can be a form of negative mirroring. Also, on the other side of the spectrum, the covert narcissist, who really by neglect does not mirror, does not validate, as John Bradshaw says, and satisfy these basic narcissist needs in the life of a child. So either way, if it's on the extreme, negative, or the extreme withdrawal or neglect, that child is going to experience that negative self-programming at the hands of a narcissist. And so, neglect, if nothing was given there, the child is kind of like swimming in this oceanic experience of like, am I okay? They don't know what behaviors to continue. They don't know what behaviors to stop. There's no guidance. There's no structure. There's no moral education. So realize that, both of those personality types can have a deleterious or negative effect. So the negative self-programming is originated from a source. So it can be, also exasperated or perpetuated by, then future relationships. People who have had narcissistic parents can tend to then, experience that negative self-programming and then continue to attract into their lives perpetrators and violators who keep them in that role of having low self-esteem, which then, branches and develops and evolves sometimes into codependency and perpetuates, a very unfulfilling relationships where they're not mirrored, and having their basic narcissistic needs met, like John Bradshaw says. So it tends to perpetuate that role into their life until they really wake up and they say, you know what, I really, I'm missing something here. I'm feeling not fulfilled. I feel like there's, something I'm meant to work on in my life that's not missing. It's kind of like that deep internal pain. So really that's when people get into their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they tend to really begin, to try to crack that nut, so to speak, and get to their authentic self. So really how to overcome the negative self-programming is to realize that a lot of this had been originated from a source which was erroneous and not true. So a lot of that self-programming can be coming at the hands of a narcissistic parent or spouse, and realize and just realize how that is negatively installed in what Dr. Joe Dispenza calls your unconscious, or your subconscious, or your cerebellum. It's the oldest part of the brain, which really runs your entire being. So it regulates your heartbeat, your breathing, a lot of your automatic, behaviors like walking. So you don't have to think, I'm lifting up my right leg, lifting up my left leg. You don't think about these things. You're able to do it unconsciously. So when you, and I apologize for this long video, but I think it's very important. I want to keep it cohesive here. So if you need to stop and start and replay, do that. But realize that unconscious part of the brain, which is the subconscious, the cerebellum, the oldest part of the human brain, it's a small shaped figure really at the base of the neck back there, and that is the cerebellum. So really that's where a lot of those old erroneous lies and old messages have been instilled. So all those ineffective mirroring at the hands of narcissistic parents that told you all these lies, mirrored back to you all these falsehoods, all these errors that generally were a projection of them and their own insecurities and their inability to be emotionally intelligent and have really at the right information. So a lot of that is imprinted, or what we call basically installed, in the subconscious. So it's very important to become aware not only of that fact, but then to become aware of the subconscious erroneous messages that are running your life, because it does tend to affect all areas of your life. So, the feeling that I'm not good enough, feeling weak, feeling insecure, feeling like you've been abused, and the shame that is carried there, and how you bring that into one's schooling, into one's employment, into one's future relationships. So really becoming aware is the first step in realizing that it's at the hands of an abuser who is outside of you. So it's very important to stop that continual installing of erroneous and negative information, toxic information. And if you can realize that they, these were people who had mirrored that back to you, these were people who were incorrect. They were coming from a really an in reality, and really not correct reflecting of the true you. So it's very important to realize that, and to realize that you are wonderful and magnificent, and you have great, amazing qualities that are meant to be brought out. And whether the narcissist can see it and mirror it back to you, oftentimes they cannot. So that's why it's so important oftentimes that people need to go no contact, because they're not able to live their life. They're not able to express themselves in the presence of a narcissistic abuser, because they just tend to corrode and try to replay the old messages, and it's incompatible. How they're feeling and reflecting back to you is incompatible with your true authentic self. So a lot of people need to go no contact, and it's not a matter of want, it's a matter of need. They need to go no contact because there's so much discrepancy between this sick person, this pathological person, and one's true authentic self. So realizing that awareness is the first step, and realizing that there's a pathology within this person, and just acknowledging that this was the impact, and really using the metacognition, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, your ability to think about your thoughts and realize really the origin of how this was instilled in you. And oftentimes that origin and realization that was at the hands of someone outside of you. It's not based in reality. It's not truth. It's not who you really are. It was just all these erroneous toxic messages at the hands of this person who is essentially out of control and was trying to control in ways that are ineffective. And so really kind of realizing that you're your own person, you have dominion over your own body, your own emotions, your own cells, your own perspective, your own values. And really, your own values oftentimes are yours alone, and oftentimes they're not shared by a narcissist. The narcissist is coming from almost an in reality or like inflated sense of self where, they're way up here, and they're operating by all this entitlement and needing to hurt others to, keep their positions. So oftentimes you don't share those values. So there can be a big discrepancy or big gap between the narcissist, their perspective, and really, your authentic self. So you need to embrace and love and cherish your authentic self, your true values, your true talents, and what you truly want to bring to the world, because that's that's what's going to give you life. That's what's going to give you your true validation, and that's where, you know, your energy is going to be really created from. And so I'm going to go into future videos and how to overcome that negative self-programming through quantum healing and getting into that healing space outside of the hands of the narcissist abuser. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.